Well, blokes and dolls, I have to release another video. It is just... What the hell is going on? That's better. Well, blokes and dolls, I have to release another video to prove... Now, I've actually found the proof that the pillars are Janus. Because some of you are saying, I haven't seen the proof. I'm unsubscribing. You'll never see me again, Charlie, but I will leave a comment in the next video and the next and the next. So what are we going to do is we're going to look at this. And we've found the proof. So notice Janus, those Gobeckli temples are annular. So these are annus temples, annual temples. So January, although it is an annular god from one year to the next, you will notice also that January is only 1 month in duration. So therefore Janus is also a monthly god. And in addition, Juno was mistaken as I don't know why it's doing that. Juno was mistaken as Janus. So we have Janus again as Juno for June at the halfway mark. So Junus, Jano, July. Well, okay, that's Kaiser. So we'll ignore July, but June and Janus. We have the start of the year and we have the middle of the year being. So we have different points of the year being marked out by this god, like we're seeing at Gobeckli Tepe in these circular temples, which are obviously like the Mayan wheels of the Aztec calendar. Absolutely fascinating, which is exactamundo what they are. And what is clear from this article, the Romans have Janus. The Romans have Priapus, which is Min at Gobeckli Tepe. The Romans also have Atlas, which is also seen as in the two inner pillars at Gobeckli Tepe. And it's clear that the Romans... which are standing in the middle of the lake, because their Odla is Atlas. Oda, water, we've established that. The root is water of Atlas. So he's holding the sky above the ocean, which is in the middle of the Gobeckli Tepe enclosure. So all these three gods, they're all seen at Gobeckli Tepe, these Roman gods, because the Romans are partly from the Near East, as in their tradition. The Etruscans are. The Romans are, so they have these gods, but even the Romans don't really know who these gods are. And it gets worse, because the Sumerians have the same gods, and they don't know who the gods are either. Because they go back to Gobeckli Tepe. It's incredible! I'm very happy about this discovery. See, at the limits of the earth, at the extremity of heaven, here he's been confused with Atlas, which is also at Gobeckli Tepe, in the same context, in the same temple, you see? So we will summarize that in a second, but basically you can read. Basically, the Romans didn't know much about him, but he seems to be central to the calendar. So it's absolutely fascinating. Presiding over beginnings and transitions. So he's the god that presides over any transition. And in this respect, he is the same as Sumerian, Babylonian, Near Eastern, Anu, as I am about to establish. God of change, changing from one thing to another, progress of the past, of the future. That's exactly what we see at Gobeckli Tepe. Exactly what we see. But let's prove it. So let's prove it. So what I'm saying is, these are the Atlas, because they're standing in the water, in the enclosure. So Oda is Atla. We've established that the Atlas is. They're roughly going on an east-west sunrise alignment. These are sunrise and sunset alignments. And they're the Atlas pillars in the middle. So that's Atlas. We have Juno or January here. And this one especially, it's interesting because it has an outer wheel as well. An outer wheel to represent something else, maybe auspicious dates or on the calendar. These are almost like calendar wheels, is essentially what they are. Or colanders. These are inverse colanders. They're holding water. Water is of creation in the middle. And the sun is shining on the waters of creation. The Bible remembers something like this, doesn't it? We've looked at that, which is quite interesting. So Junos, Januaries, just fascinating. Let's continue. So here's the evidence. In Mesopotamian, here is the evidence that this Janus is at Gobeckli Tepe and divides zones, and is the bridge between, and that Anu is Janus. Anu, sky, heaven, Anum, Sumerian, divine personification of the sky, king of the gods, ancestor of many of the deities of the ancient Mesopotamian religion. So ancestor of the Mesopotamian deities, a source of divine and human kingship. So kings would have been crowned at Göbekli Tepe. Kings. Look, this is the proof that we can link it to the Roman Janus. In Mesopotamian astronomy, the sky was divided into 3 zones, with the stars closest to the pole belonging to Enlil, and those closest to the equator to Ea. But in the middle, there's a middle zone. The stars located between these 2 zones were the domain of Anu. So in between the equatorial stars and the polar stars was Anu, looking with his 2 heads both directions. That is all the proof I need. And guess what? The Egyptians of the Great Pyramid had the same system, because the Great Pyramid is located 30 degrees north. So they too divided the sky, or the earth, 3 ways, according to latitude, as the Mesopotamians are doing. And it's thanks to the Romans coming from the east. I've always said that the Romans aren't true Westerners. They act really funny. The Romans are a strange people, and you can see that they've got the old Gobeckli Tepe gods. They've got them, and they're enshrining them. They've carried the civilization from Turkey. Just absolutely fascinating. Now, the whole gist of the article, not only did the Romans not really know much about Janus, but guess what? Even the Sumerians and the Mesopotamians don't know much about Janus, because he goes back to Göbekli Tepe. Anu almost never appears in Mesopotamian artwork and has no known recognizable anthropomorphic iconography. Ooh. Oh. And do you notice also at Göbekli Tepe, they're not showing his face. There's no face on these T-pillars. It's like they're not allowed to represent him, just like we're not allowed to represent the face of God. You're not allowed to represent him. That's blasphemy. Because he's a supreme God, you don't draw his picture. Same with Allah. You don't draw his picture. No, you don't even, and some Muslims will not even allow the writing. They don't even want the writing. The writing's okay for most of them. So a picture of Allah will actually be writing. Partly because Ea, the previous moon god, is god of writing, I suppose. Just fascinating. Just absolutely unbelievable. And his symbol was a horned crown on a pedestal. Those T-pillars are a bit like a crown, aren't they? Oh, this is incredible. Just incredible. So there's a Phoenician Gad, which is Germanic god, but I believe Ki could be the earliest version we see. It's Sumerian, and it is earth. So God is the earth. And when you look at Genesis, the first thing that's there is the earth, the waters, of the deep waters of creation, and then the sun starts shining on it. Or it's shining on the moon. And I've suggested it's based around a sort of Buddhistic pyramid religion of earth worship in Genesis. You see that in Genesis, see earlier videos. So God is the earth. You want to know what God is? It's the earth. Most fascinating indeed. Anu's spouse, because Anu is the heaven, so God is the earth. So there you go, God has a wife. Okay, now you know. You didn't know that. But now you have to look in the Sumerian sources to find out the history. Because they're not going to tell you in the church. The church, they're using version 6.2, you know. This is version 3 or something like that, you know. Fascinating stuff. And it's interesting. You see that Anu in the Roman calendar is the head of the calendar, Janus. And he's a king god even to the Romans, but they're also worshipping Ea, that is Eaupiter. So they're Ea worshippers of a different kind, pre-Hebrews of a different kind. But you see here, he's the father of the great gods. So do you notice in the Bible, obviously Nephilim gods, and it's plural. Now this has been explained by one Bible commentator I read the other day. Something like, God's many great works, so therefore Therefore, he has a multitude of forms. Well, I mean, you know, let's be literal and say, look, he's plural, so there's lots of them. So when we see Anu at Gobeckli Tepe, there's lots of him, isn't there? There's one for every month. He's all over the place. It's amazing. This table rocks, and this table's listen to Billy. What was his name? Billy Haley in the comments. It's rocking and rolling. Just fascinating. It's doing the Mondo Rock, Mamba Rock. Just fascinating. And there's more we need to know about this Gobeckli Tepe god. The earliest texts do not describe Anu's origin, and his preeminence is simply assumed. In later traditions, his father was usually Anshar, whose spouse was Kishar. Another tradition most likely regarded Alala and Belali as his parents. So Baal might be his parents. Yeah, that's another tradition. Look, you're mixing up all sorts of gods here to try and explain Anu, but earliest texts don't discuss. You know why? Because that's how old he is. He's older than the Sumerians. So I love this explanation. So let's just go to the next slide. Is a male sky god, ancient Mesopotamian religion, king of the gods, personification of the sky, sometimes confused with Antu or Anna, a Celtic mother goddess. No, same thing. Because the Celts are the Chaldeans. I've looked over it so many times. The only conclusion I can come to is that there was a Chaldean migration, just like they went to Rome. Same thing. They went from the Near East throughout the Mediterranean. All the Mediterranean people look the same. They look similar, don't they? And even up to Ireland, they look Mediterranean as well, because they're Chaldeans. This migration from the east, and they went up to the Celtic world, the Atlantic coast, and that's where you get the word Celt from, that Atlantic coast up here. Because they're saying, I'm a Chaldean. Are you? Oh no, my family goes back to the Chaldeans. So I'm a Chaldean. You're not. And that meant I'm a king. I'm a god. You're not. I'm a Celt. You're not. And then eventually the whole tribe, oh, we're the Celts. No, we come from the Celts. All of us come from the Celts. We're all related. We're Celts. You understand that? Don't mess with us because we're Celts. And so Irish Anna must be the same thing. So Anu. So this is an annual festival. Now it supposedly comes from a burning cross. I call it a cross. I mean, just look at it. And it's on fire because of the oil. So it celebrates oils and so forth. It's like a feast, an annual feast of celebrating the oil, the miracle of the eternal oil. So there we go. The Anu, the Irish goddess. Well, here we go. You say it's not January. Well, it is, because they're saying these are breasts. These are the paps of Anu in, looks like in Ireland. Well, there's two of them. So it's got two faces, you see. So you have this duality that Anu had, Ianu had in the old tradition. This is absolutely, I can't believe it. This is absolutely incredible. Danu. And from this we have Danaan. Obviously the Tuatha de Danaan are technology stone builders coming all the way back from Gobeckli Tepe, worshippers of Anu. The Tuatha de Danaan are the people of technology who went into Ireland, i.e. the Celts from Babylon, and they brought lots of their religion with them. Just absolutely fascinating. Wealth, riches, prosperity. You see, because that's the whole point of it in Gobeckli Tepe. These are Anu temples in Gobeckli Tepe. See, and we don't know much about it, unfortunately. It's all right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the video. This is the proof that these are annual temples at Gobeckli Tepe, 100% with mythology. Thank you, and a big thank you to the Romans for proving this to us, because the Romans preserved these Gobeckli Tepes because lots of them came from Turkey. They came from the Near East. It says in their ancient tradition, and they brought these gods with them, and they kept memory of these gods alive, even though they didn't really know who they were. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And just one more thing before we go. One more thing. You don't put a face on God. This is like a person. This is the Atlas in the middle, the two, and the sunrise and sunset goes through here, so that it would be in the crest in that hill over there. And these are the Anus, so it jumps from month to month to month. So he's looking both ways. He's the Father God, but he's in the plural because he's the Nephilim. He's the plural gods. He's the Creator God. He's the Father God. The two Atlases in the middle are standing in the water in the middle, if there was water, and they are and they don't point that way to the sun. They point that way to the sun. So proving the face is on each side. So it's looking at the sun and the sunset. So it's guarding over the transition from the sun. It's looking directly into the sunrise, and the other one is looking directly into the sunset, as these look on each side from month to month. I think I've made my point, guys. What do you think? Have I made my point? Tell me in the comments. Cheers.